Having problems deciding what to read next? I don't know why. Why? Why would you have any trouble whatsoever deciding what to read next? Okay, so this is a video explaining how when I read a book and then I go down rabbit trails trying to figure out what to read next, and it's more about reeling it in. Okay, so I just finished Leadership in Turbulent Times by Doris Kearns Goodwin, and one of the viewers had chose this for January, and I will do that in a wrap-up video, mention everybody who helped me decide what to read for January. This book is about 4 presidents: Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, I want to say FDR, so I will refer to him as FDR, and Lyndon B. Johnson. And the author, Doris, would then talk about the other presidents and their strengths, very little about their weaknesses, except she does bash Lyndon B. Johnson in the end. Their failures are kind of glossed over. But this isn't a book review about this book. This is a video about how to decide what to read next, to help give ideas or suggestions, explaining my rabbit trails of how I decide on what to read next. I know a lot of people are mood readers. Readers are mood readers. And I am as well, but I noticed that if I have a TBR, it keeps me more focused versus reading 14 pages, putting it down, reading 14 pages, putting it down, which is what I used to do. I don't do that anymore. So this book right here, gave me so many suggestions, not suggestions, but made me think, oh, I could read about this, or I could read about that. Now, the world is your oyster. So if you decide to read this book, a book or books that you might be interested in looking into later. So recommended rabbit trail books. Obviously, if you read this book, you might want to read another Lincoln book, which I have, you can see right there, all those, and that one right there are my Lincoln books. And I am giving myself a Lincoln book challenge for 2026. Okay, so you could read another Lincoln book if you so so desired to read. Or you can read a book about Mary Todd Lincoln, or a book about their only surviving son, Robert, who had a lovely home in, I think it was Manchester, Vermont. Or you could read a book about a Civil War, or you could read a book about law. If you know anything about Lincoln, you know where I'm going with that. Or you could read about a book about depression, because Abraham Lincoln suffered from depression. Or you could read another book about Theodore Roosevelt. David McCullough has Morning on Horseback about Teddy. Now, a lot of the beginning of the book is about his parents. But David does eventually start talking about Teddy. Or you could read a book about his daughter from his first wife, Alice. I have a book on her. I think it's over here somewhere, probably in this shelf. Or you could read a book about the coal strike during that time period that he helped mitigate. Those coal owners, the coal mine owners, were so arrogant. I was not aware of the details of it, and so Doris does talk about it, how Teddy had to even bring in J.P. Morgan because the coal mine owners were too good and couldn't be bothered to talk to the go-between, the person who used to be a coal miner and became kind of the boss, but he was not good enough to negotiate for the coal miners who went on strike. People. You had those class statuses back then. Okay, or you could read about the Rough Riders. I don't think I've ever read a book about the Rough Riders. You could read a book about the national forests and the wilderness reserves. Okay, and then now going to FDR, and yes, Theodore Roosevelt and FDR were like distant. I forget what the family tree is. Anyways, if you didn't know, yes, they're related. You never know what people don't know. You could read a book about him. I know I have some up here. I actually think I have another book on FDR by Doris Kearns. Good one. You could read a book about Eleanor. I know I have a couple of books about Eleanor. Very interesting woman. I don't know that I agree with her politics. I agree with her philanthropy and the things that she did to help people, but anyway. Oh, you can read about adultery because FDR had an affair with some woman. Was it Lucy? Now, I know there's a fictional book about that, and I did not like it, but I know that there's a nonfiction book about who she was and what she did, and anyway, Eleanor found out and put her foot down because she almost left him. You can read about the Great Depression. Good luck finding a book because my library has this many books on the Great Depression. You can read about the banking crash. You can read about how things changed and the more they stayed the same. Or the oligarchs that I had mentioned. There were oligarchs in Teddy's time and oligarchs in the Great Depression. And so the oligarchs, J.P. Morgan, the DuPont family, the Mellon, I forget who, he was the Secretary of the Treasury, I think. How he took all his money out of stocks before it crashed. What a convenient timing, right? How did he know? The Rockefellers, Ford, etc. There are a lot more. There were just a few listed here. I wrote a list and it poof, vanished off my desk. I don't know how. And now for Lyndon B. Johnson. He was not a nice man. So you could read another book about him. He was a teacher. I did not know that. So he taught at a school in Cotulla, and I don't know if it's Cotulla or Cotulla. It's in Texas. It's a small town. It was a small town. I don't know if it's still a small town in Texas. Lyndon B. Johnson was a teacher. He was kind of put in this school to help the Mexican children. And back then there was extreme poverty and racism, and he helped them. I did not know that, and so that was interesting. So you can continue on that vein of interest if you so please. Oh, and you can read a book about Lady Bird Johnson, his wife, and how she dealt with her alcoholism and civil rights. And I actually have books to recommend for civil rights because I have read some, and the books, three book titles stuck in my head. I looked them up to verify the title. The fourth one eludes me. I can't remember the name of it. I tried looking it up. I couldn't find it. So we'll start with that one. That one was about a black woman who, I think in her high school years or college years, she became involved with an organization. I want to say it was the NAACP, but I'm not sure. And she became so radicalized that she would not remain friends with family members or other friends if they did not think the way that she thought. And I remember when I read this, I thought, wow, That's crazy to me. Anyways, but I don't remember the title. I tried looking it up, couldn't find it. Okay, so one book that I would recommend, Warriors Don't Cry. Another one, The Echo from Dealey Plaza. I recommend that one, which is about the assassination of JFK. So I would recommend going down that thread. And Hit List, which was interesting. You could read a book about MLK, which I know I have some, and I need to get to them. Or you could read about Vietnam, which was basically Lyndon's failure. So then you can go online if you have trouble deciding, like after you read a book, maybe not a nonfiction book, but after you read a book, and you just have no idea what to read next. And I know when you read a fiction book, sometimes that happens. Like, where do I go from here? Where's my rabbit trail? If that happens, I have some suggestions. Go online, search in the search bar what to read next. Because there are now websites that will help you. And if you are your typical booktuber reading fictional books, these websites will amaze you and you will love them. For people like Prometheus and myself, not so much. I tried looking them up. There were quite a few that I looked up last night, and I could see where if you are, say, you're a romance novelist, a romance reader, or your fantasy reader, or your, you know, what those, you know what I'm talking about, right? We don't own any. Maybe I'll put a picture here. You know who I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Those fantasy fictional books that are like 5th grade level and in series, and you can blow through them super quickly, and once you finish the series then you're like, what do I read now? Those books, these websites will help you find the next book to read. That way you don't have a book hangover, you're not in a reading slump. I'm telling you, if you are that reader, these will help you. Well, I didn't write the specifics. Just put in the search bar, what to read next. And that will give you a plethora of websites to check out. I do know that there are also podcasts. I think there are people who like the podcasts, and I'm not an auditory person, so I don't like podcasts unless I can see you. There are podcasts that will recommend books, but again, they're not books that Prometheus and I would generally be interested in. If you do have a recommendation for a visual podcast, not an oral podcast, a visual podcast, that would recommend books that you think Prometheus and I would be interested in, please let us know. Let me know. Prometheus doesn't have time to read. Who are we kidding? So I will look into it, and like I said, if you can find a podcast that recommends really good nonfiction books, or books like this, or, you know, books with history, and I'm not talking about the psychology, the philosophy books where, you know what I'm talking about there too, right? I'm not talking about Rousseau. Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. Okay, anyway, so those are my recommendations. Rabbit trails to help decide what to read after such a book as this. And I will be giving other recommendations in my wrap-up videos for all of the books that I read. So I won't be doing it now with this one. I'll just point, hey, go to that video, because that'll save us all some time. Anyway, so if you have ever had a reading slump, how did you get out of it? How did you decide what to read next? And let me know if you have recommendations for a podcast that you think I would like. Thank you very much. Hope you all have a great time and enjoy a good book. Happy reading. Bye.